Beloved chosen one, listen closely because heaven is still echoing from what you did today. You may not have realized it, but your simple act of obedience, your quiet step of trust, became a divine announcement in the unseen. The moment you chose faith over fear, the heavens leaned closer, angels took note, the very air shifted around you. You didn't need to post it, announce it, or prove it because God already saw it. You woke up with questions pressing heavy on your heart. You felt uncertainty whisper, "What if it doesn't work out?" Yet, even in that tension, you moved forward. You did what God asked you to do without knowing how it would unfold. That's faith in its purest form, not when you feel strong, but when you act while trembling. Today, you didn't wait for a sign. You became the sign. You walked in trust. You stood in light when fear was offering comfort in the shadows. You may think it was something small, a text you didn't send, a compromise you refused, a prayer you whispered while no one was watching. But heaven saw the weight of it. That little yes to God carried more spiritual power than an army of words. When you chose not to run, you broke a pattern. When you decided to believe again, something in the invisible shifted. You see, the enemy wanted today to be the day you gave up. He whispered that you were tired, that you were forgotten, that your faith was useless. But you answered him not with arguments, but with obedience. That silence, that surrender terrified hell. You didn't fight the fear by shouting, you fought it by trusting. You didn't beg God for proof, you acted as though his word was already true. That's why heaven celebrates you tonight. God saw the moment you resisted the voice of doubt. He saw the tears you held back, the courage it took to keep going when no miracle was visible. And he said, "That one trusts me more than their fears." You may not see the ripple yet, but heaven does. The moment you chose faith, something ancient moved. Generational chains loosened. The storm that tried to silence you became the proof of your growth. Fear bowed its head because your heart refused surrender. Heaven marks such days. Invisible ink writes your name beside the words, "Faithful One." While others wait for comfort, you walk through discomfort carrying light. You have become living evidence that trust can bloom in the middle of uncertainty and still shine, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 4. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." That verse is not just poetry, it's prophecy fulfilled through your life today. You walked through shadows, and you feared no evil. You chose presence over panic. You believed that even in the valley, God was near. The very choice you made proved that your relationship with Him isn't built on outcomes, but on trust. There is something powerful about quiet faith. It doesn't need to be loud to move mountains. It doesn't demand to be seen, it simply stands firm. And you did that today. You didn't need a crowd. Heaven was your witness. You didn't need applause. Angels were your audience, and that's why heaven smiled. Beloved chosen one, heaven has already recorded this day in your favor. The small victory you won in secret is a signal that greater blessings are on the way. Your obedience has become an altar. Your stillness has become worship. Your courage has become a key unlocking the next door. So lift your head tonight. You have proven that you trust God more than your fears. You've proven that faith doesn't always roar, it sometimes whispers. I still believe. And now, before this moment passes, let your heart respond. This isn't coincidence, it's divine alignment. You were meant to hear this. Heaven paused your scrolling to remind you you passed a test no one saw. You have been found faithful. Take a deep breath and say it aloud, I trust you, Lord. Let that be your declaration tonight, because faith grows in the soil of quiet obedience, and yours just bloomed. If this message resonates in your spirit, take a moment, like, share, and comment below to affirm your faith. Let others know that faith still wins over fear. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to stay connected to this flow of divine encouragement. You are not alone in this journey. God's eyes are still upon you. His hand is still guiding you, and His promise remains unbroken. The valley will turn to victory because you chose trust over trembling. Remember, this is not the end. It's the confirmation that heaven recognizes your growth. You didn't fail today. You proved that faith still lives in you. You proved that you are God's chosen one, not because of perfection, but because of perseverance. Comment 7 on 77 below if you know this word was meant for you, because today, your trust became your testimony. You didn't tell anyone about the battle that took place inside you today. No one saw the tremor in your hands, the storm of thoughts that almost drowned your peace. On the outside, it looked like a normal day, but within you, a war was raging between what your eyes could see and what your spirit was being asked to believe. You were standing in a moment that heaven designed not to expose your weakness, but to reveal your strength. Beloved chosen one, that private moment when you wanted to retreat but didn't became a spiritual turning point. The unseen realm paused as you decided that trusting God was not just a phrase, but a way of living. You didn't post a declaration or cry out for attention. Instead, you made a decision that only heaven heard: I will not let fear win. And when that whisper left your lips, light filled the space around you. Fear had been waiting for you to surrender. It knew your history, your doubts, your scars. It thought it had a pattern to predict your fall. But you broke the cycle today. You didn't feed the fear, you starved it with your silence. You didn't let panic steer your decisions. You let peace guide your steps. Even when your emotions screamed, your spirit stood still. That's not weakness, that's spiritual maturity. The truth is, the hardest battles are often the quiet ones. You fought a war no one else saw, but the evidence of victory now lives in the peace that sits upon you. You chose to lean into God's plan even when it felt like free fall. You decided that His promises were enough, even when circumstances shouted otherwise. That's the kind of faith that shakes the unseen world. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 3, verse 19, "The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to tread on the heights." That is what happened today. You walked through instability with divine steadiness. Fear tried to make your feet stumble, but grace gave you balance. Every time you thought you were about to slip, unseen hands steadied you. You didn't know it then, but heaven was cheering for you. Angels stood guard around your decision, ensuring that fear would not reclaim what you surrendered to faith. You didn't need to announce that you were trusting God. The evidence was already written in your actions. When you forgave that person instead of responding in anger, you trusted God. When you decided to rest instead of overthinking, you trusted God. When you prayed instead of panicked, heaven heard that as worship. Those simple moments became altars of obedience that sent tremors through the spiritual atmosphere. Chosen one, this battle you fought wasn't random. God orchestrated it to strengthen your faith, to show you that even without visible assurance, His Spirit inside you is enough. Each challenge was a mirror reflecting your growth. Where once you would have collapsed, now you stood. Where once you would have spoken fear, now you chose silence. That's what spiritual authority looks like: quiet, consistent, unstoppable faith. There's something holy about enduring without applause. It's in those unseen places that the anointing deepens, where your roots grow strong enough to bear future fruit. Every time you refuse to let fear dictate your move, heaven expanded your territory. Fear doesn't lose power all at once. It weakens with every step you take forward. Today, you weakened it again. You may feel tired, but that's the fatigue of victory, not defeat. Spiritual growth often feels like exhaustion, but it's actually transformation. You're shedding old fears, outdated reactions, worn-out ways of thinking. You're stepping into a version of yourself that fear cannot recognize, a soul anchored so deeply in God's presence that storms can shake the surface but never uproot the core. Look back for a moment. You've faced seasons darker than this one. You've survived moments when hope felt distant. Yet here you are, still choosing faith, still walking forward, still believing that God has not forgotten you. That's more than endurance, it's divine evidence that grace lives within you. Heaven is not impressed by perfection, it is moved by persistence. And your persistence today, your choice to keep trusting, has become a fragrance rising before the throne. You didn't wait for conditions to improve before believing. You believed so conditions could improve. That's the difference between a survivor and a conqueror. You've stepped from one realm into another. Chosen one. Don't minimize what happened today. Faith doesn't always look dramatic. It often looks like a sigh that says, God, I still trust you. You whispered that, and all of heaven recorded it. You didn't see it, but fear recoiled. Darkness retreated. Peace entered. The spiritual report of this day is written in gold ink. They trusted. Hold that truth close tonight. You may feel unseen, but the unseen world witnessed everything. Every trembling breath of faith, every moment of surrender, every silent act of courage, it all counted. And it all proved one thing: you are becoming who heaven always said you were. There are moments heaven hides inside the ordinary, and today was one of them. You thought it was just another routine decision, another step, another breath, but heaven was measuring something deeper. Every small act of faith you made echoed in eternity. You may not see the magnitude now, but the ripple has already begun. Beloved chosen one, faith isn't only proven in grand victories. It is often proven in quiet persistence, when no one thanks you, when no one notices, when no reward is visible. You still do what's right. You still obey the gentle whisper of the Spirit. You still choose light over darkness, even when your emotions crave release. That's how warriors are made. That's how trust matures. Your smallest decision of obedience was a seed planted in divine soil. You may not see it sprout yet, but heaven saw the roots begin to move. That moment you said yes to God instead of comfort. Something broke open in the spirit. What others call delay, heaven calls preparation. What looks like stillness, God calls strength training for your faith. You are not falling behind, you are being refined. God is shaping your reflexes to respond with trust, not panic. You're learning to move at heaven's rhythm, not the world's rush. That's why you sometimes feel out of sync. It's because you're no longer dancing to fear's music. And yet, deep down, you've wondered if your quiet faith even matters. You've questioned if these small acts make a difference. But they do. Every time you choose prayer instead of complaint, peace instead of worry, surrender instead of control, you are proving that you trust God more than your fears. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 17, verse 20. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. That verse is your reflection today. Your faith may feel small, but heaven sees it as mighty. It's not about the size of your belief, it's about the direction of it. You've pointed your faith toward the right one, and that changes everything. Mountains don't move because you're strong, they move because you dared to believe. There was a moment today, wasn't there, when fear whispered, "Maybe it's not working," but your spirit answered, "I still believe." That's when the mountain began to tremble. You didn't need to see results to know God was active. You simply trusted that His silence wasn't absence, and that trust became thunder in the heavens. Heaven doesn't celebrate the loudest worshiper, it celebrates the one who stays faithful in silence. Your quiet consistency is a melody the angels sing over. The smallest prayer whispered in faith shakes more darkness than the loudest doubt ever could. That's why the enemy fights your stillness. He knows your peace is powerful. So when you take a deep breath and choose peace instead of panic, you're not being passive, you're being prophetic. You are announcing to every unseen power, "My hope is in the Lord." Your peace becomes your warfare. Your calm becomes your declaration of victory. And today, your spirit stood taller than your fears. Heaven applauded not because you shouted, but because you trusted. It's not the noise of your faith that moves God, it's the sincerity. He sees the effort, the trembling obedience, the tears you wipe away in secret. Every single one is counted as worship. You are walking proof that faith doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like taking one more step when your legs feel weak. Sometimes it's choosing kindness when anger feels justified. Sometimes it's choosing to keep believing when evidence screams give up. That's the kind of faith that makes history in heaven's archives. And that's why you're being prepared for greater things. Your ability to trust in the small will qualify you for the great. The way you honor God now, in hidden obedience, is setting the foundation for visible miracles later. Heaven always tests character before it releases calling, and you are passing those tests with quiet excellence. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. Every act of unseen faith is shaping you into a vessel that can carry more glory. So don't despise small beginnings, celebrate them. Every little yes you whisper adds to heaven's masterpiece. Take a moment right now. Don't scroll, don't rush. Let gratitude fill your heart. Think of the small act you did today that no one saw but God did. That was worship. That was proof of trust. That was your mustard seed moving mountains. Now write this as your declaration of faith in the comments. Still I believe. Say it again softly. Still I believe, because when you declare that, you affirm heaven's truth that faith does not expire when results delay. It lives, breathes, and multiplies in the waiting. That phrase is not just words, it's your shield, your song, your stand against fear. So let the world keep rushing. You chosen one will keep trusting, but on your faith is not measured by noise, but by endurance. And today, heaven has written another line beside your name, still believing. Fear has many voices, but none speak truth. It whispers in logic, disguises itself as caution, and wears the mask of wisdom. Yet beneath every echo lies the same message. Don't trust God completely. You have heard that voice many times before, sometimes in your thoughts, sometimes through the words of others, sometimes through the ache of disappointment. But today, that voice lost its power. You kept walking. You didn't silence fear by denying its existence. You silenced it by obeying God anyway, beloved chosen one. There was a time when fear dictated your decisions, when it told you when to move, when to hide, when to quit. But no longer. The moment you chose faith over safety, you dethroned fear from its false authority. You refused to let it call the shots. and that single decision shifted your destiny. Fear cannot coexist with perfect trust, and trust is what heaven saw in you today. The world applauds strength that shouts, but heaven honors strength that stays. You didn't need to roar to prove your courage, you just needed to keep walking while afraid. That's the kind of bravery that terrifies the enemy, the kind that doesn't crumble when feelings fade. You didn't wait to feel ready. You moved because you believed. You've learned something most people never do. Fear doesn't disappear before faith, it dissolves through faith. You can't wait for courage to come. You must walk trembling and let courage form along the way. Every step you take while shaking is a sermon the heavens record. You didn't defeat fear by running from it. You overcame it by facing it with God beside you. The Word of God declares in the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, verse 10, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Those words are not an invitation to pretend fear isn't real. They are a reminder that fear isn't final. God didn't tell you to never feel afraid. He told you that fear will not win. You have a divine companion who holds you steady, even when your knees tremble. Today, that promise was alive in you. The righteous hand of God upheld you when your own strength was fading. Fear tried to convince you that obedience would cost too much. It told you that letting go meant losing everything. But God whispered otherwise. If you let go, you'll finally be free. And you believed him. You stepped out even when the path was dim, trusting that the one who called you wouldn't abandon you midway. That's trust refined by fire, faith that doesn't depend on visible signs. In that moment, heaven didn't just see your obedience, it saw your surrender. You didn't just resist fear, you released control. And that's what breaks its power forever. Fear feeds on control, it thrives when you need to know outcomes. But the moment you surrender outcomes to God, fear loses its appetite. You starved it today. You may not realize it, but every time you say, "God, I trust you," something in the spirit realm shifts. Chains break, darkness retreats. The atmosphere around you aligns with divine order. Trust is not passive, it's a weapon, and you wielded it masterfully today. Think about this: fear can only grow where love is absent. But you are filled with love from the one who never fails. That's why fear keeps failing when it meets you. It sees the fire of divine affection burning within and cannot stand near it. You are not fearless because you are strong. You are fearless because you are loved. The storm may still be loud, but your spirit has grown louder. You no longer tremble at the unknown because you've seen what happens when you step out anyway. God always shows up, sometimes not in thunder or lightning, but in quiet assurance that says, "I'm here." That whisper is worth more than any guarantee. Beloved, today marked another burial of old fear. You might not have noticed the ceremony, but heaven did. The graveyard of your spirit now holds another dead lie: you can't handle this. But you did handle it because you let God handle it through you. And this truth will follow you: fear will still knock, but you will no longer answer. You've learned the sound of its knock. You recognize the scent of its lies. And you will smile, remembering this day, the day you walked forward trembling, yet triumphant. Heaven calls that moment holy. You may call it survival, but God calls it transformation. Fear didn't disappear. It bowed. It lost its right to rule you. So rest tonight knowing this courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the choice to trust through it. And you, God's chosen one, have proven once again that faith always walks louder than fear ever shouts. There are days when heaven sends whispers instead of thunder. when the proof of your growth isn't loud or visible but steady and deep. Today was one of those days. You didn't need a miracle to keep moving, you became one. In every quiet moment where fear tried to reign, faith stood taller. That silent strength, that unseen yes to God was louder than any song of victory. Beloved chosen one, heaven saw what no one else did. The tears you didn't explain, the burden you carried with grace, the moment you whispered, "I'll trust you anyway." These were not wasted moments. They were sacred offerings placed upon an invisible altar. Your obedience small, sincere. Trembling became a fragrance that reached the throne. Every act of trust builds an unseen cathedral. The stones are your sacrifices, the foundation your faith, and the light that fills it is grace. Today, you laid another stone. Heaven smiled as you built higher. What you are constructing may not be visible to the world yet, but when it's finished, others will find shelter in the walls of your obedience. Fear tried to haunt you with its familiar tune, reminding you of every time hope seemed delayed. But you didn't bow. You lifted your eyes to the hills. And even though you couldn't see the summit, you climbed. Every trembling step upward made the darkness retreat another inch. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3 on verse 5, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." That scripture isn't just wisdom, it's instruction for the chosen. Today, you lived it. You refused to depend on what made sense and instead relied on what was promised. You walked into uncertainty as if it were solid ground, because your confidence wasn't in the path, it was in the one who paved it. Heaven called that obedience worship, because trust is worship. It's the moment you say, "God, you know better than I do," and release the need to control the outcome. That surrender releases divine power, an unseen river flowing toward your future. And yet, heaven also watches how you handle the in-between, the waiting rooms of faith. You may feel like a seed buried beneath soil, unseen, forgotten. But burial and planting look the same from the outside. God hasn't buried you, He's planting you. The darkness isn't punishment, it's preparation. The soil is just the womb of destiny. When the light breaks again, your roots will already be deep enough to hold everything He's promised. Until then, let gratitude water your soul. Gratitude turns delay into devotion. It transforms the ache of waiting into the peace of trusting. Beloved, if these words find a home in your heart, let them not end here. Let them move through you like wind through leaves alive, carrying motion, carrying sound. You are part of a garden heaven is growing, and gardens thrive through shared light. When you like a message like this, you are saying to heaven, "I agree." When you share it, you are sowing a seed into someone else's midnight. And when you subscribe, you are building an altar of consistency, saying, "I will return to this well again." And yes, when you donate, when you give even a little, you become the rain that keeps this field alive. You aren't giving to a screen. You are watering a message that has already fed your spirit. Every drop counts. Every act of generosity becomes another echo of faith, reminding heaven that the chosen still believe, still sow, still stand. Don't underestimate what your seed can do. One seed of faith created the tree you're standing under today. The message that reached you was once a whisper someone else chose to sustain. Now it is your turn to add your light, your kindness, your amen in action. You don't have to give much. You just have to give meaningfully, like the widow who offered her 2 coins. Heaven measures not the amount, but the heart behind it. When you give, you join the flow of grace that multiplies in unseen ways. feeding, healing, reminding, awakening others just like you. Your engagement, your heart, your presence is sacred currency in the kingdom, and heaven never forgets generosity offered in love. So pause for a breath. Feel the warmth of this moment. You are standing under the gaze of the Almighty, the one who sees every act of trust, every seed of kindness, every choice to believe. The winds of his favor are already moving. Fear may try to whisper again tomorrow, but you now know its sound and you will smile, remembering that the voice of faith always speaks louder. Keep standing. Keep building. Keep giving from that well of trust that never runs dry. Heaven is closer than you think, and everything you sow in faith will return multiplied in light. There are moments when heaven hides miracles in the mundane, and today was one of them. You thought it was an ordinary day, another stretch of waiting, another quiet test of patience, but the heavens were watching closely. The way you responded to silence was louder than any shout. You didn't realize it, but you passed a test that few recognize until it's over, the test of trust when there is no sign. Beloved chosen one, faith doesn't just shine in miracles, it glows brightest in delay. You stood still while your emotions demanded answers. You didn't rush to fix what God hadn't finished. You didn't run when the path grew narrow. Instead, you breathed deeply and whispered, "I still trust you." That whisper carried more weight than thunder in heaven's courts. Every day you walk by faith, the ground beneath you strengthens and you are being rooted, refined, and readied for something greater than what your hands can currently hold. You have learned that waiting is not weakness, it's warfare. To stand in peace while uncertainty circles is to declare to the unseen, "My hope is anchored in something unshakable." It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. You lived that verse today. When anxiety tried to wrap around your mind, you chose peace instead. When panic pressed at the door, you answered with prayer. You refused to surrender to the shadows. The sound mind God gave you became your sword. Your love remained intact, even when disappointment knocked, and your power, quiet but steady, pushed back against darkness that thought it still had authority. You see, the evidence of growth isn't in how loudly you rejoice, but in how calmly you endure. Faith matured inside you today, like gold purified through flame. You didn't need visible proof to know that God was working. You carried assurance within your spirit. That's a sign of transformation when faith no longer depends on sight. Chosen one. Heaven has already taken note. Angels marked this day with joy. They wrote, "Faith stabilized under pressure." You may have felt nothing extraordinary, but spiritual realms trembled. Because every time you choose trust over fear, you dismantle another layer of doubt, not only in your own life, but in generations before and after you. Your life is becoming a testimony of quiet endurance. Others may not see the weight you carry, but they'll soon feel the warmth of your victory. There's a fragrance around souls who keep walking in storms, the scent of divine resilience. It tells the world this one has been through fire and still worships. You've been walking through invisible resistance, but heaven has been clearing the way ahead. Each prayer, each step, each breath taken in faith has opened unseen paths. The mountain that once stood before you is now being moved piece by piece. You may not hear the rocks shift, but you'll soon see the view change. And when you look back, you'll realize that this waiting wasn't wasted, it was preparation. The delay shaped your patience. The silence deepened your discernment, and the testing sharpened your spirit. You are becoming unbreakable, not because you never feared, but because you kept walking while afraid. Beloved, God doesn't measure time the way you do. While you count the days, He counts the development. While you measure the distance, He measures your depth. You may feel like nothing is happening, but heaven sees roots expanding, stretching, anchoring you for future glory. The deeper the roots, the taller the tree. There will come a moment when breakthrough arrives suddenly, when everything shifts in a heartbeat. But when it happens, you'll realize it wasn't sudden at all. It was years of quiet obedience maturing in divine timing. You'll thank God not only for the miracle, but for the patience He built in you along the way. And that's why this message finds you tonight. Heaven wanted to remind you that you've already proven something extraordinary. You trust God without constant reassurance. You've learned to love Him not only in victory, but also in the middle of mystery. Take this moment as a divine confirmation that your heart is in alignment with heaven. You are not behind. You are right on schedule. Every delay is divine choreography, and every silence is strategic. What looks like stillness is actually the sound of God setting the stage. Now, before this moment passes, mark your obedience in the physical realm as a prophetic act. Comment 444 below. Not as a number, but as a declaration. 3 layers of truth: Father, Son, and Spirit surrounding your journey in perfect completion. When you write it, let it be your seal of faith. I am not afraid. I am covered, and I am chosen. Let heaven and earth both take note that you have declared your alignment out loud. Chosen one, you've already come further than fear ever wanted you to. Keep walking. Keep believing. The one who started this work in you will never stop shaping you until your story glows with glory. The silence isn't empty, it's full of divine construction. There are moments when obedience feels like standing in the middle of a storm with nothing to hold on to but the sound of God's voice. You know what that feels like. Chosen one. You've lived through it when every emotion screamed run, but heaven whispered stay. That tension between fear and faith has become your training ground. And today, you passed another lesson. You didn't see it, but your restraint was worship. When you held your peace instead of defending yourself, heaven called that faith. When you stayed silent rather than proving your worth, heaven called that trust. You didn't need to fight to prove that you were chosen. Your obedience already testified for you. Beloved, obedience rarely feels like triumph. Often it feels like loss, like letting go of something you could have controlled. But in God's realm, surrender is strategy. Every time you choose His will over your comfort, something eternal is set in motion. The door you refused to force open today was one He never wanted you to enter. You thought you lost, but you were being protected. Heaven sees differently. What looks like delay on earth is defense in heaven. The path that seemed blocked was actually covered, shielded until the timing became safe. You may not see it yet, but you were saved from something you didn't even know was coming. That's the mercy of obedience. It doesn't always reward immediately, but it always preserves. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 7. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. Those words live in you. Trust has become your foundation, confidence your compass. Even when confusion surrounds you, your spirit remembers this truth. Blessed are the ones who trust, not the ones who understand. Understanding gives control, but trust gives peace, and peace is far greater. Today, heaven watched you choose peace. You chose to believe that God's silence was not rejection, but redirection. You stopped asking why and began whispering yes. That shift changed everything. Heaven doesn't require you to understand before obeying. It requires your surrender so that understanding can follow. Obedience will always cost something precious. It may cost pride, comfort, or convenience, but it always births something sacred in return. Every sacrifice today became a seed in heaven's soil. The tears that came with your obedience watered that seed, and in time it will bloom into something that makes sense of this entire season. Think of Abraham on the mountain, raising a knife in trembling faith, not knowing that a ram was already caught in the thicket. That's what obedience feels like, uncertainty wrapped in trust. You never see the provision until the obedience is complete. And when it comes, you realize that God never intended your loss, only your loyalty. Beloved chosen one, obedience is the language of the mature. It's not built on feelings, but on faith. You've grown beyond needing confirmation every step. You've learned to recognize God's tone even when the words are hard. That's what heaven celebrates, the maturity to follow even when it hurts. There's a certain kind of glory that only obedience can unlock. It's not loud, but it lingers. It wraps around your spirit like a quiet fire. That's what you carry now. Every yes to God increases that flame. Every time you choose Him above all, the light grows brighter and the darkness loses ground. Maybe no one else saw what you gave up. Maybe no one applauded when you chose righteousness over revenge, patience over panic, compassion over criticism. But heaven noticed. Angels stood still when your heart broke, but still said, "I'll trust you." That kind of faith is rare. It moves the heavens. You are learning that peace doesn't mean everything feels right. It means you know who is right. It's not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of confidence in the one who holds your story. And today, your story turned a page. You are walking into a new chapter called Still Obedient. Don't underestimate the power of quiet consistency. Every time you say yes to God, even through pain, you are chiseling away at the walls that once held you back. Your yes today is making room for joy tomorrow. Obedience always leaves room for miracles, even when it feels like emptiness. And here is a secret heaven wants you to remember: God doesn't only bless your outcomes, He blesses your intention. He saw your willingness before you even took the step. He knew how much it would cost you, and still He asked not to test your worth, but to reveal your strength. So rest in this truth tonight. You didn't lose anything of eternal value by obeying. You positioned yourself for something beyond measure. The pain you felt is temporary. The fruit will be lasting. The ache will fade, but the reward will remain. Chosen one, heaven has written today's obedience in gold ink. The record beside your name reads, "Still faithful." Not perfect, not flawless, but faithful. And that's all God ever needed. You walked through another fire today, and once again, you came out shining. The flames did not consume you, they refined you. You are becoming the very reflection of the one who called you. Keep walking, keep obeying, keep believing. You are living proof that obedience is not weakness, it's worship in motion. In the stillness of the unseen, waves ripple across the spirit realm. Waves created by your quiet faith. You may not see them, but they are there, moving outward from every act of trust, every decision born of courage. When you chose to believe God again, even after disappointment, something shifted far beyond your comprehension. Heaven moves when faith is exercised in silence. Beloved chosen one, you are not walking in vain. Every step taken in faith sends a vibration into eternity. You think your prayers are whispers, but in heaven they sound like thunder. You think your tears fall unseen, yet they water spiritual ground that will one day bloom into testimony. Nothing you do in faith is wasted. Nothing you surrender in love is lost. Today, something in the unseen realm bowed because of you. The ripple began when you resisted the pull of fear. It continued when you forgave the one who wounded you, and it expanded when you decided to stay hopeful despite the silence. These choices, though invisible to the world, were earthquakes in the spirit. You are beginning to understand the truth that every warrior of faith eventually learns most battles are won long before they are seen. The war is not fought with hands, but with hearts anchored in trust. Your victories are not measured by applause, but by peace. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 6, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." That verse is the rhythm of your journey. You have learned to walk forward even when the path looks uncertain. You are strong not because you never tremble, but because you never stop. You are courageous not because you feel no fear, but because you move through it. And you are never alone, not for a moment. The same God who began this good work within you is walking beside you. Step by step, the ripple you created today is holy. It began with a choice, but it will end with a harvest. What you decide in faith always multiplies in impact. Your simple act of trust becomes a wave that touches places and people you'll never meet. That is the mystery of obedience. It stretches beyond your reach, but never beyond God's purpose. Every choice to trust breaks the momentum of darkness. Every sigh of surrender weakens the power of despair. Every tear cried in faith is counted as a declaration that hope still reigns. You are not just enduring, you are influencing the unseen. Heaven has shown you how to fight differently now. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer panic, you pause. You no longer run, you rest in His promise. This shift in your spirit has become a banner of victory. Where fear once dictated your movement, now peace directs your step. That is evidence of transformation. The ripple doesn't just change circumstances, it changes you. Your mind is steadier. Your spirit is quieter. Your heart has learned that faith isn't about forcing outcomes. It's about trusting the one who writes them. The longer you walk with Him, the more you see that what looked like delay was actually design. Even now, heaven is aligning what belongs to you. Promises are maturing, doors are adjusting, hearts are being prepared. The ripple of your obedience is pushing through barriers you didn't even know existed. God is orchestrating conversations, opportunities, and alignments that will one day meet you at the appointed time. You will walk into moments that seem miraculous, but they will simply be the harvest of the seeds you're planting right now. Beloved, you don't need to force anything. What is divine cannot be rushed, it can only be received. God's timing is never late, it's layered. Every moment of waiting, every act of faith, every yes you've whispered in pain has been adding depth to the story He's writing through you. And when the manifestation comes, and it will, you will understand why the waiting was necessary. You'll see that the struggle refined your hearing, that the silence tuned your spirit to heaven's frequency. The very thing that once frustrated you became the forge that shaped your faith. You are not behind schedule. You are right where heaven needs you. The ripple continues because you continue. You are becoming a current of light that moves quietly but transforms everything it touches. When you look around and see no movement, remember this truth: rivers don't stop flowing just because you can't hear them. God's plan hasn't paused, it's progressing beneath the surface, gathering momentum for release. And when it comes, it will not trickle, it will pour. Every hidden act of obedience will return as visible glory. Every private prayer will echo in public testimony. The same ripple that began in silence will end in a wave that carries you into promise. Chosen one, keep walking in the flow. You are not chasing blessings, they are following the current of your faith. Heaven has already recorded today's obedience as motion in eternity. What you cannot yet see is already happening. There comes a sacred moment when fear realizes it no longer has a home in you. Today was such a moment. You may not have felt the shift immediately, but heaven did. There was a silence in the unseen world, a pause as fear's whisper lost its authority. For the first time in a long time, the voice of faith grew louder than the voice of anxiety. Beloved chosen one, something powerful happens when fear loses its grip. The chains it forged from old memories begin to break. You stop replaying the same mistakes. You stop expecting disappointment. You stop apologizing for the light that God placed within you. The same power that raised Christ from the dead begins to resurrect peace in you. This is not imagination, it's spiritual reality. When faith speaks, fear must listen. When trust rises, panic retreats. You didn't shout it away, you simply stopped feeding it. You didn't fight fear with more fear, you answered it with truth. Heaven recorded that as victory. Fear is loud, but it is not lasting. It can only echo where faith has not yet spoken. And today, your faith spoke. Every time you chose to breathe instead of worry, to forgive instead of hold on, to hope instead of hide, you silenced the enemy's broadcast. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. You lived that truth today. Stillness became your weapon. You stopped striving to prove your worth. You stopped trying to fix what only God can redeem. That stillness was not weakness. It was wisdom. It said to heaven and hell alike, my trust is not negotiable. You've begun to understand something deep, that fear isn't destroyed by resistance but by rest. It thrives in chaos but dies in peace. When your spirit rests in God, fear loses its power source. It starves, it fades, it evaporates in the presence of divine confidence. And that's what you carry now. Confidence, not arrogance, not self-reliance, but quiet assurance that God is who He says He is. You don't need to understand everything. You just need to believe that He's already working everything together for good. Fear once told you that you'd always walk in circles, repeating the same lessons. But heaven says otherwise. You are not repeating, you are refining. You are not trapped. You are being transformed. Every time you overcome one layer of fear, you step into a wider space of freedom. That's how growth feels uncomfortable but holy. There was a time when fear felt like your shadow. Now it feels like a stranger. You can still sense it, but it no longer owns your attention. You've learned to look toward the light, and shadows lose power in light. The enemy can't manipulate a mind that stays fixed on truth. Beloved, what you did today was not small, it was monumental. You didn't just win a battle, you shifted the balance of power within yourself. Fear no longer has first access to your thoughts. It has been dethroned. And heaven celebrated that moment as a turning point in your journey. You may feel like nothing changed externally, but the spirit realm tells another story. Angels rejoiced, the darkness retreated, the light within you expanded its territory. You may not see it yet, but the evidence will manifest soon in peace that lasts, in joy that no longer wavers, in clarity that returns like sunrise. You are learning that stillness is not stagnation, it's strategy. God does His best work in silence. While you wait, He wages war on your behalf. The walls you thought were unmovable are already cracking. The doors that seemed locked are now being fitted with divine keys. All because you chose to stay instead of flee, to breathe instead of break. Heaven calls that faithfulness. and faithfulness always attracts favor. Now, before this moment passes, seal your faith with a declaration. Comment fear is gone. Type it with intention, not as ritual but as revelation. Every letter is a declaration to the unseen world that you are no longer available for fear's manipulation. You have reclaimed your peace. You have repossessed your authority. You have remembered who you are, the chosen, the redeemed, the unshakable child of the Almighty. When you write those words, heaven will echo them back. Yes, it is gone. Fear has no claim over your thoughts, your steps, your future. The same peace that carried you through this day will walk beside you through every tomorrow. Let your heart rest now. You are not fragile. You are fortified. You are not anxious. You are anchored. Fear once shouted louder than your faith, but now faith sings songs that fear cannot silence. Chosen one, heaven watches with delight as you live in freedom. You are walking proof that peace is not the absence of storms, it is the presence of God within them. And tonight, the report from heaven is simple and eternal: fear lost, faith won. Heaven writes with invisible ink. Most people don't see it, but every act of your faith leaves a mark on your story, on the hearts around you, even on eternity itself. Today, that ink glowed brighter. You lived a verse, not just read it. You trusted when you could have complained, and that trust turned into light. Beloved chosen one, the divine ledger of your faith is overflowing. Every time you say, "I still believe," heaven underlines your name. Every prayer whispered through trembling lips becomes another note in a symphony of obedience. And that melody, your melody, is reaching heaven's ears tonight. You've been walking through days that feel like watercolor. The lines blur, the meaning fades, and you wonder if the painting of your life is still beautiful. But God is the artist. He knows how to use both light and shadow. Every dark streak is just depth being added to your masterpiece. The contrast doesn't destroy the art, it defines it. When you chose faith again today, the artist smiled. You trusted his brush even when you couldn't see the full picture. You didn't snatch the brush from his hand. You let him continue his work. That kind of surrender is rare and radiant. As the Apostle Paul wrote in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 6, "Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously." That promise is breathing over you now. You've been sowing quietly acts of faith, words of kindness, prayers spoken in secret, and the field may still look barren, but the roots are deep. Growth is happening where your eyes cannot see. The soil of your surrender is rich with divine possibility. Faith, you see, is farming. It's planting seeds in seasons that seem impossible. It's believing that what you buried will rise again in time. You've been faithful to water your hope even when rain refused to fall. You've learned that perseverance is not about speed, but about steadfastness, trusting that harvest always follows sowing. You are living that principle now. The harvest is forming and the fruit is swelling. It's just not yet visible above the soil, but heaven has already counted it as done. Beloved, take a moment to feel this truth. God has been investing in you as you've been investing in others. Every word of encouragement you've given has built unseen bridges. Every act of generosity has become a thread in heaven's tapestry of redemption. You are part of something far larger than yourself, a divine ecosystem of faith where every act matters. When you like a message of hope, you add your voice to heaven's echo. When you share it, you cast a net into the sea of souls, catching hearts that were ready to give up. When you subscribe, you build an altar of consistency, returning again and again to be refreshed by divine reminders. And when you donate, you place a seed directly into the soil of transformation. You become a river that sustains what once sustained you. The flow that reached you doesn't end here, it continues through your generosity. Like rain returning to the clouds, what you release always finds its way back, multiplied. Do not underestimate your giving, whether time, prayer, or provision. Each offering becomes a living echo that heaven amplifies. When you sow into a message that has touched your spirit, you are watering future miracles for someone else. You are saying, "Let this light shine for others the way it shone for me." Your life, beloved, is a field of divine exchange. The more you pour, the more heaven fills. The more you share, the more peace expands. You don't give to get, you give to grow. That is the essence of faith, the courage to release what you cannot keep, to gain what you cannot lose. Think of your giving, your sharing, your faith, like candles lighting other candles. None lose their flame, but the room grows brighter. You are part of that brightness now. Each act of generosity ignites another heart. Each heart becomes another beacon. Together, they form a constellation of light guiding weary souls home. If this message has touched your heart, let gratitude move you. Let the act of sharing or giving be your way of saying, "I believe in this light." You are not just supporting a voice, you are sustaining a mission, a movement, a divine current that reminds thousands they are seen and loved. Even heaven rejoices when generosity flows, because giving is the language of the kingdom. Every time you release something for the sake of others, and you mirror the heart of God Himself. So tonight, remember this: your obedience, your engagement, your willingness to invest in the flow of light, it all matters. You are helping heaven reach hearts one message at a time. May your faith continue to be like rain falling on thirsty ground, quiet, gentle, but powerful enough to awaken life wherever it lands. And may every seed you've sown return as abundant harvest, pressed down, shaken together, and running over with grace. Heaven often works in silence, not because it ignores you, but because it's building something weighty behind the scenes. There are days when nothing seems to move, when every prayer feels like it vanishes into the air. Yet those are the days when faith digs deepest roots. Those are the hours when heaven is most active, quietly preparing, aligning, orchestrating what you cannot yet see. Beloved chosen one, trust this truth: God never wastes your waiting. The pause is not punishment, it's precision. When the timing seems off, it is not delay, it's design. Every unanswered question is a thread in a tapestry too intricate for your current view. One day the pattern will reveal itself, and you will understand why the silence lasted so long. You've learned to breathe through the unknowing. You've learned that not all prayers are answered with sound, some are answered with stillness. The stillness you face now is not emptiness, it's incubation. Something sacred is forming in the dark, much like a seed hidden beneath soil before it breaks into light. You see, God hides greatness in waiting rooms. That's where patience matures and pride dies. That's where the noise of doubt loses volume and faith begins to hum its steady song. Heaven trusts those who can sit quietly without losing reverence, who can stand still while others rush ahead. You are becoming one of them, steady, unmoved, grounded, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 24 to 26. The Lord is my portion, says my soul, therefore I will hope in Him. The Lord is good to those who wait for Him, to the soul that seeks Him. It is good that one should hope and quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. You are living those words. You are embodying what it means to hope and quietly wait. The world may call it passivity, but heaven calls it worship. To wait with faith is to say, God, I trust you even when I don't see movement. That posture invites divine activity. Every delay is carving depth into your soul. It's creating space for greater capacity. You cannot pour oceans into a shallow vessel, so God deepens you through waiting. That depth will soon hold blessings that once would have overflowed and been lost. There's a beauty in what you're becoming. You no longer flinch at silence. You no longer panic when plans shift. You've grown comfortable in the unknown because you've learned that God never stops being God, even when life stops making sense. This calm you carry now, that's proof of transformation. Waiting does not mean stagnation. It means preparation. Think of the eagle before flight. It doesn't flap in panic. It spreads its wings and waits for the right wind. You, too, are waiting for divine wind, a moment heaven will release that will lift everything that felt heavy. When that wind comes, you won't struggle, you'll soar. The patience being built in you now will become the peace that sustains you later. That's why this season matters. Heaven isn't late, it's layering your strength. You're learning what only waiting can teach: trust without evidence, peace without understanding, confidence without control. Remember this: the same God who began your journey has already written its end. He is both author and finisher, crafting every chapter with intentional grace. You're reading one line at a time, but he sees the whole story, the plot twists, the redemption, the glory at the end. Sometimes he delays answers because he's writing better ones. What you think is silence is often editing. He removes what would have distracted you, adds what will sustain you, and refines what will glorify him. That process may feel invisible, but it's never inactive. Beloved, you are in the safest hands, the hands that molded galaxies, the hands that stretched out the heavens and still count every hair on your head. Those same hands are holding your timeline. You will not miss what's meant for you. You will not be late for what's appointed. So rest. Rest without guilt. Rest knowing that waiting is not wasted. Every quiet morning you choose peace. Every night you choose prayer over panic. Heaven takes note. You're not stuck. You're being stationed. You're not paused. You're being positioned. There will come a day when everything aligns: the provision, the people, the purpose, and you will look back at this quiet chapter and say, I understand now. You'll realize the waiting wasn't God's absence. It was his artistry. And when that day comes, you will carry something different, an authority born from stillness, a confidence that cannot be shaken, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Others will look at you and see strength, but heaven will smile knowing it was born from surrender. Keep breathing, keep believing, keep trusting. The silence is not empty, it's full of God. Heaven keeps records far beyond what the eye can see. Every decision you've made in faith, every act of obedience, every moment you chose trust over fear, it's all written down. Not in ink that fades, but in light that endures. Your faith has been recorded in heaven's book, and today, that record glows brighter than ever. Beloved chosen one, sometimes you forget how much your obedience matters. You think it's small, quiet, unnoticed, but heaven measures differently. What you call ordinary is divine in the eyes of God. Every yes you whispered while trembling, every tear you offered as a prayer, every time you chose to forgive when it hurt, those are sacred entries in your eternal story. You are not just living, you are being written into heaven's testimony. The ink is grace, the paper is eternity, and the author is God himself. When he writes your faith, he doesn't record perfection, he records perseverance. You may stumble, but you never stop walking. That's what moves his heart. As the apostle wrote in the book of Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. That truth is your assurance. Heaven remembers. God sees your efforts, even the hidden ones. You may not receive applause here, but you have eternal acknowledgement there. Nothing you've done for love, for faith, or for obedience has gone unnoticed. The one who numbers your hairs has also numbered your sacrifices. There's something deeply sacred about the unseen life of a believer. The world claps for the visible, but heaven applauds the invisible, the prayers no one hears, the kindness no one thanks, the forgiveness no one knows you gave. Those are the pages God treasures most. Heaven's record of your life isn't filled with what you achieved, it's filled with what you overcame. Fear, doubt, rejection, heartbreak, delay, all the forces that tried to silence you, and yet, here you stand, still believing, still choosing grace, still shining even when the darkness pressed close. Every trial you endured became testimony. Every valley you walked through became a verse of victory written beside your name. The angels don't see your pain as wasted. They see it as evidence of endurance. You've proven that faith doesn't just survive fire, it is refined by it. And this record, beloved, isn't just for heaven's archives, it's also a mirror. Every now and then, God lets you glimpse a reflection of who you're becoming: stronger, wiser, softer in compassion, firmer in faith. That reflection is the evidence that His work in you is ongoing and unstoppable. Think of it this way: your obedience is ink, your trust is signature, your endurance is punctuation. Heaven is composing your legacy, line by line, chapter by chapter. Every act of faith adds another paragraph to the story that eternity will one day tell about you. The story isn't finished yet. There are pages still being written, miracles still forming in margins you haven't read. Sometimes you feel forgotten, but the author never pauses the pen. His hand is steady, and every pause in your life is just a comma, never a period. Heaven's timeline runs deeper than human clocks. You may think progress is slow, but in eternity's rhythm, you're right on time. What feels like waiting here looks like weaving there, God threading your story into a greater tapestry that spans generations. One day, others will read your faith. They'll study how you endured, how you kept believing when others broke, how you walked in love when bitterness would have been easier. You won't just inspire, you'll testify through the record heaven is already writing. Your legacy isn't measured in years, it's measured in impact. Every person touched by your obedience becomes a continuation of your story. Even when you are silent, your faith speaks. Even when you rest, your light travels on. And tonight, heaven wanted to remind you your record is not forgotten. Your name is not lost in the crowd. Every page is marked with grace, every line filled with love. Take this moment to seal that truth in your spirit. Let your heart respond with a simple act of faith. Comment 222 below, not as a number, but as a symbol of divine remembrance. Let it represent the eternal witness of Father, Son, and Spirit who testify on your behalf. When you write 222, you are declaring, "Heaven remembers me." It's a prophetic affirmation that none of your pain, effort, or devotion has been in vain. You are seen. You are known. You are written into heaven's history, not as a forgotten wanderer, but as a chosen witness. And when the day of reward comes, and it will, you will stand before the author of your faith. And he will read your story with joy. Every tear will make sense. Every trial will sound like triumph. Every silence will echo with purpose. Beloved chosen one, your record is not finished, but it is already glorious. Keep living as though heaven's pen is still moving, because it is. There is a quiet power in realizing that the past no longer holds the right to narrate your story. You've walked through memories that once felt like cages, through regrets that echoed louder than your prayers. But today, heaven leans close to say what your heart has been aching to hear: you are no longer bound. The door you thought was locked has been open for a long time. You just had to stop staring at it and step through. Beloved chosen one, you've carried so much weight for so long that lightness feels foreign. You've clutched pain like an heirloom, thinking it was a part of your identity. But God never designed you to live chained to what hurt you. The past was a lesson, not a sentence. What once broke you has become the very evidence of His redemption at work. You've mistaken survival for identity, but heaven has been reshaping you into someone who no longer reacts from pain but responds from peace. The scars you carry are not signs of defeat. They are signatures of endurance. Every scar says, "I lived, I learned, I healed." You didn't escape the past, you transcended it. The moments that once brought shame have become holy ground. The memories that once made you tremble now make you testify. That is how grace works. It turns history into harvest. Heaven doesn't erase your story. It redeems it until even the dark pages shine with purpose, as we are reminded in the book of Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. You've heard that verse before, but today it breathes differently. All things, not just victories, not just answered prayers, but the heartbreaks, the wrong turns, the sleepless nights, all of it, woven into good. Every sorrow has been stitched into a divine pattern you couldn't yet see. The thread of pain was never wasted. It was woven into something enduring. The God who called you didn't only redeem your spirit, He redeemed your timeline. He took the days you thought were lost and refilled them with meaning. He took the places where you fell and planted seeds of wisdom there. You thought those were wasted years, but heaven calls them foundations. Every stumble prepared you to stand stronger. Beloved, the past has no permission to enter the new season God is preparing. Regret is not your companion anymore. Peace is. Shame is not your language. Grace is. The echo of old failures can no longer drown out the sound of purpose rising within you. Heaven has declared closure over what once kept you captive. Look back now, not to mourn, but to marvel. Every time you thought you were abandoned, grace was standing beside you, waiting for your eyes to open. Every time you thought you were stuck, God was building a bridge beneath the surface. You never stopped moving, you were just being rerouted by mercy. The past had its purpose. It taught you discernment, resilience, empathy. It forced you to see where your strength truly comes from. You learned that peace isn't built in comfort, it's forged in chaos. And because of that, you now carry a calm that storms cannot shake. Forgiveness became your greatest weapon. You forgave not because they deserved it, but because you refused to remain a prisoner of pain. Forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was warfare. It broke the spiritual chains that kept your heart bound to yesterday. The moment you released them, heaven released you. You've grown beyond explanations. You no longer need everyone to understand your journey. You've realized that the ones meant to walk with you will recognize the light in you, not the wounds behind you. You've stopped apologizing for healing, for changing, for evolving. The new you doesn't fit into old spaces, and that's by divine design. The wilderness you walked through wasn't punishment, it was pruning. God trimmed away what couldn't go with you into the promise. He stripped false identities, removed attachments, and silenced distractions. You thought you were losing everything, but heaven was preparing a lighter version of you for higher ground. And now, you are free not just emotionally, but spiritually. Freedom doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes quietly, like dawn breaking over the horizon. You wake up and realize the ache has softened, the bitterness has faded, the weight has lifted. That's how heaven heals gently, completely, permanently. The story of your past no longer dictates the rhythm of your days. You've learned that mercy has the final word. Every time the enemy tries to remind you of who you were, simply remind him of who you've become. You are not defined by what broke you, but by what rebuilt you. You are living evidence that redemption is not a theory, it's a transformation. Heaven calls you restored, not ruined. The years that pain consumed have been redeemed with purpose. The same places where you once wept will become wells of living water for others who thirst for hope. So breathe. The air is clear now. The walls have fallen. The old season is over. Walk forward with your head lifted high. The past no longer trails behind you, it bows before you. You, beloved, are free. And this freedom isn't fragile, it's eternal. There is a holy mystery in how God takes the very things that once weakened you and turns them into the foundation of your strength. What once felt like the end was never destruction. It was transformation. Every broken piece of your life has been gathered in divine hands, reshaped and anointed. Heaven does not discard fragments, it fashions them into vessels of glory. Beloved chosen one, the anointing that rests on you now is not something that fell overnight. It was pressed out of pain. Oil never flows without pressure, and your life has known its share. Every hardship, every heartbreak, every delay at all squeezed something precious out of your spirit. You wondered if you were breaking, but you were really being poured. The anointing on your life is not the perfume of perfection. It is the fragrance of endurance. Heaven has refined you in the furnace of faith, and what remains is stronger, purer, radiant with grace. You carry something sacred now, an oil that darkness cannot counterfeit. It is not loud, but it lingers. Wherever you walk, the atmosphere shifts. You've learned that spiritual power isn't measured by applause, but by presence. True anointing doesn't demand attention, it transforms by existing. That's why some people sense peace when you enter the room. They are not responding to you, but to the presence that walks with you. The oil upon your life speaks silently, yet powerfully, as we are reminded in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. You have become that vessel, fragile in appearance, yet carrying eternal power within. The cracks in your clay did not disqualify you, they allowed the light to shine through. What once embarrassed you now becomes evidence that glory can dwell in imperfect people. Heaven delights in using the ordinary to reveal the extraordinary. The pressing you endured was never punishment, it was preparation. Oil cannot come forth without crushing. Gold cannot shine without fire, and faith cannot mature without testing. You've been tested, but you didn't break. You were distilled. Every trial removed excess. Every tear purified your vision. Every loss peeled away pride until only purpose remained. Now, your anointing flows not from striving, but from surrender. It flows from the quiet yes you gave in secret, the silent endurance that no one applauded. God saw every hidden act of faith, every unseen obedience, and He turned it into oil. That's why you shine differently now. Your glow is not artificial. It's the residue of communion with the divine. Sometimes the anointing feels heavy, because it carries responsibility. To walk in it means to live aware that your words carry weight, that your presence carries peace, that your silence can heal or convict. You no longer move casually through life. You move consciously, as one who knows heaven's gaze follows your steps. And yet, this oil does not make you distant, it makes you deeper. You begin to feel what others cannot express. You sense burdens before words are spoken. You find yourself praying for people who never asked, loving those who wounded you, blessing where others would curse. That is how the anointing manifests, through compassion that transcends logic. Beloved, this oil cost something, and you paid it willingly, even without understanding the price. You lost things you thought you needed, but you gained a presence you cannot lose. You shed tears that cleansed your vision. You were emptied so that you could be filled with what is eternal. There is a certain holiness about people who have suffered and still believe. Heaven trusts them with weightier grace, because they know how to handle it gently. That's you now, a carrier of calm, a bearer of light, a vessel that leaks love wherever it goes. You don't need to announce it, heaven does it for you. Every time you pray, the oil flows. Every time you forgive, it multiplies. Every time you choose faith over frustration, the fragrance deepens. You've become a walking altar wherever you go. Heaven meets earth. That's what the crushing produced, a life that overflows instead of breaks. And yet, this is only the beginning. The oil that flows through you will not stay contained. It will find the cracks in others and fill them with healing. You are a conduit now, not just a container. The anointing moves through you, not just in you. Do not fear the weight of it. The same God who poured it will sustain it. You do not have to strive to keep the oil flowing, just stay connected to the source. Remain humble, remain thankful, remain aware that every drop of grace comes from Him. Your journey has taught you what few understand: brokenness and anointing are not enemies. They are dance partners in the rhythm of redemption. And through that dance, heaven reveals its most beautiful truth. Light always leaks through cracks. You, beloved, are proof that God still brings beauty from pressure and glory from pain. The oil is upon you, and it will never run dry. There is a moment in every chosen life when heaven whispers, "Rise higher." You've reached a place of peace. Yes, but peace was never meant to be a finish line, it's a launch pad. The oil that now rests on your life isn't meant to stay still. It's meant to flow. The light within you isn't for hiding, it's for guiding. And the world needs what heaven has placed inside you. Beloved chosen one, you've spent seasons being refined, reshaped, and remade. Now the Father says, lift your eyes. The mountain that once intimidated you is no longer an obstacle, it's an altar. It's time to climb. Your calling is not behind you, it's ahead, wrapped in purpose and promise. You were not chosen just to survive the fire, you were chosen to carry its flame. You've been given something rare, divine influence. Not the kind that demands a platform, but the kind that transforms atmosphere. Wherever you step, heaven steps. Wherever you speak, light follows. The presence you carry is not for keeping, it's for kindling. It awakens hearts that have forgotten how to hope. As the prophet Isaiah declared, chapter 60, verse 1, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." That verse isn't just ancient poetry, it's your present calling. The glory has indeed risen upon you, and heaven now invites you to let it be seen. Not through perfection, but through presence. Not through performance, but through purpose. The time of silence is giving way to sound. Your story is meant to speak to echo across valleys where others still sit in shadows. You are heaven's messenger in motion. You've walked through storms so that you could tell the world. The clouds do clear. You've endured darkness so that your light could guide others home. The oil that flows through you isn't a private treasure. It's a public responsibility. Just as a river doesn't keep its water, your anointing is meant to overflow. You carry living water, and thirsty souls are waiting downstream. Every word of hope you share, every act of kindness you offer, every prayer you release, it all becomes part of heaven's current, reaching farther than you imagine. That is why connection matters. Every like, every share, every comment isn't just a click, it's a ripple. When you engage, you're not promoting a message, you're extending a miracle. Someone scrolling in silence may find hope in your echo. Someone on the edge of giving up may see your faith and find strength again. When you like, you plant agreement saying, yes, I believe this truth. When you share, you sow light into another soul's darkness. And when you subscribe, you become part of a continual flow of renewal, a river that refuses to run dry. And if you ever feel stirred to donate, understand that it's not a transaction, it's participation. You are fueling a lighthouse that has already guided you. You're keeping the flame alive so that it can reach others still lost at sea. You become part of the unseen network heaven uses to sustain this message of hope, restoration, and faith. It isn't about the amount, it's about alignment. Every act of giving says, I want to see this light keep burning. The very hands that once trembled in fear now hold the power to ignite others. Your generosity becomes divine currency exchanged not just in this world, but in eternity. Beloved, think of yourself as a bridge. You stand between heaven's promise and earth's pain. Through your faith, your words, and your actions, you connect the two. That's why your presence matters. You are no longer just receiving from heaven, you are releasing heaven. You're a vessel of transmission carrying hope where heaviness once ruled. Let your story breathe beyond you. Comment your reflection below, not just to speak but to sow. Words written in faith don't vanish, they root. Someone will read your line and find their footing again. That's how revival spreads, not through noise, but through sincerity. Your voice is not small. Heaven amplifies it through obedience. Every honest word, every act of love, every bit of light you share adds color to God's canvas on earth. The world doesn't need louder voices, it needs truer ones. And truth already lives inside you. So it is. Rise higher, not in pride, but in purpose. Rise like dawn breaking over despair. Rise knowing that every step forward pulls others with you. You are heaven's reminder that light still wins. If this message breathes life into your heart, let it move you not out of obligation, but out of overflow. Let gratitude turn into action. Let faith become movement. Let love take tangible form. And as you climb, remember, mountains aren't conquered in leaps, but in steady steps. Each act of sharing, each word of kindness, each seed of giving is another step upward. Keep walking, keep shining. The view from the summit will be worth every tear shed in the valley. Heaven is still watching, still recording, still rejoicing. The flame within you will not flicker out, it will grow brighter, illuminating paths for countless others who will follow your light. Beloved, you were never called to blend in. You were called to blaze. There comes a time in every journey when the evidence of God's hand begins to unfold in ways that can no longer be ignored. The subtle alignment of moments. The right word at the right time. The unexpected open door, it's not coincidence. It's orchestration. The same invisible hand that once steadied you in darkness is now revealing the masterpiece it has been painting behind the veil. Beloved chosen one, you are beginning to see what heaven has been building all along. The scattered pieces of your life are forming patterns. The unanswered prayers now look like protection. The delays that once felt cruel now shimmer with divine precision. Nothing was random. Every thread that once confused you was woven intentionally into this moment of clarity. God has been faithful in ways you didn't recognize at first. He guided you through closed doors to lead you to the right ones. He let certain things crumble so that you would never mistake temporary comfort for eternal purpose. Every disappointment was a redirection, every heartbreak a recalibration. Heaven never lost track of you, not even once. And now, as the evidence of His hand emerges, your heart begins to understand what your spirit knew all along, that even in silence, He was working. Even in stillness, He was moving. Even in pain, He was planting something precious inside you. As it is written in the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive." Those words echo through your story. What the enemy intended for harm has been rewritten into healing. The very wounds meant to silence you have become the testimony that strengthens others. The betrayal that broke your heart taught you discernment. The rejection that bruised your confidence made room for divine approval. Everything that tried to destroy you became material for your destiny. You've entered a season where clarity replaces confusion. The fog is lifting. You are starting to see how heaven's timing has always been perfect. Nothing was late. Nothing was wasted. Even your detours were part of divine design, shaping the resilience required for where you are going next. The evidence of God's hand isn't always loud, it's often delicate, like sunlight finding its way through the cracks of a closed room. It comes in whispers that confirm what your spirit already sensed. A conversation that answers an unspoken prayer. A door that opens after you finally released control. A peace that arrives for no logical reason. These are the fingerprints of the divine. The hand of God doesn't always move in miracles that the world can measure. Sometimes it moves in the small mercies, the breath that steadies you when fear returns. The comfort that finds you when no one else understands. The strength that reappears just when you thought you'd reached your end. Every detail carries the mark of His intentionality. The right people arriving at the right moments. The wrong ones leaving before they could hinder your growth. The unexpected opportunities that align with what you prayed for years ago but had forgotten. This is not luck, it's fulfillment. The promise has been quietly blooming beneath the surface. Heaven is unveiling what it has been cultivating in secret. The blessings being released now are not random rewards. They are answers to prayers that once felt unheard. You've stepped into a divine rhythm where everything works together not just for survival, but for glory. And in this realization, gratitude becomes effortless. You find yourself thanking God not just for what went right, but also for what went wrong. You begin to see the beauty in the storms, the wisdom in the waiting, the mercy in the breaking. The same moments that once wounded you now shine as windows through which His faithfulness gleams. Beloved, this is the evidence of a faithful God, a God who finishes what He starts. You are standing inside promises that were spoken long ago, some even before you were born. The alignment you feel is not new, it's ancient. Heaven is simply letting you catch up to what has already been decreed. You've reached a turning point. The signs are subtle but sure. Peace where there used to be panic. Clarity where confusion once ruled. Opportunities where rejection once closed doors. This is what divine order looks like. It doesn't arrive with chaos but with calm. It doesn't force, it flows. Stand in awe, chosen one. Look back and see the fingerprints of God all over your path. The patterns of protection, the echoes of provision, the steady rhythm of grace, all testifying that you were never abandoned, only being aligned. Heaven's evidence surrounds you now. You don't need to search for miracles, they are already happening in the quiet consistency of divine care. The same hand that carried you through will carry you forward. And as you breathe tonight, let this truth settle deep within you. The story was never falling apart, it was falling into place. There is a moment when heaven's voice becomes still, not because it has stopped speaking, but because everything that needed to be said has already been written upon your heart. You've reached that sacred threshold, beloved, where trust no longer needs proof and peace no longer needs explanation. What you carry now is not just faith, it is fulfillment. The waiting, the wounding, the wondering, all of it has led you here. This is what divine completion feels like. It doesn't come with thunder or applause. It comes quietly, like sunrise after a long night. You wake one day and realize that the ache has turned to understanding, that what once broke you now blesses you. The storm didn't end because it disappeared, it ended because you changed within it. You have become the living embodiment of endurance. The lessons that once felt heavy are now wings. The tears that once blurred your sight have washed your vision clear. Heaven didn't just want to deliver you from battles, it wanted to make you a dwelling place of victory. You are no longer striving to reach peace, you have become peace. As we find in the book of Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. Being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. That promise has unfolded before your eyes. The good work began long ago in whispers, in trials, in moments where you thought you were too broken to continue. But the author never stopped writing. Even when you felt erased, heaven was adding depth to your story. Even when you felt forgotten, heaven was forming fruit in secret places. Every silence was still sacred ink. Completion doesn't mean the absence of pain, it means the redemption of it. You've discovered that God doesn't remove every thorn, He teaches you to bloom with them. Your resilience is not denial of hardship. It's proof that grace runs deeper than wounds. You no longer flinch at scars because you know they're just healed wounds wearing testimony like jewelry. You walk differently now, steady, measured, humble. You no longer rush to fix what time hasn't finished. You've learned the rhythm of grace, the cadence of calm. You understand that not every answer comes quickly, but every delay carries design. You are content not because you've given up, but because you've grown up in spirit. Beloved chosen one, heaven has crowned your journey not with ease, but with evidence that you have become unshakable. You've learned that faith isn't loud, that miracles don't always flash, that sometimes the holiest thing you can do is simply stay. You stayed when walking away seemed easier. You trusted when silence stretched too long. You obeyed when obedience cost you comfort. Now, heaven calls your faith complete, not perfect, but whole. The cracks have not been erased, they've been filled with light. You've become like stained glass once shattered, now radiant, holding the sunlight of grace in every fracture. What once disqualified you has become the very thing that reveals God's glory through you. You stand at the end of a long season, and yet it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a beginning wrapped in peace. The horizon stretches before you, familiar yet new. You are no longer the person who began this journey. You carry wisdom now, tempered in fire, cooled in tears, sealed by grace. Heaven doesn't celebrate your strength alone, it rejoices in your surrender. Strength was what carried you through, but surrender is what transformed you. You let go of the need to understand and learn to simply be held. You realize that God's will is not a path to find, but a presence to follow. And now, you are walking proof that trust is not fragile, it's eternal. Your faith has been tested by time, tempered by trial, and proven through perseverance. It no longer wavers with every wind. It rests. It knows. It remembers. The crown placed upon you is invisible, yet its weight is holy. It's the crown of endurance, of trust, of divine maturity. You didn't earn it by perfection, you received it through perseverance. And as heaven looks upon you, the verdict is written in radiant script, faithful until the end. You have reached the place where striving ends and abiding begins, where you no longer chase blessings because you've realized the greatest blessing is His presence. You walk now not as one seeking approval, but as one who carries divine affirmation. You are known, you are sealed, you are complete. You look around. Beloved, the world hasn't changed, but your sight has. You see purpose where pain once lived. You see glory in what you used to call grief. And through it all, you understand that every season, every silence, every storm was never wasted. Heaven has finished this chapter, but the story continues eternal, unfolding, beautiful. You are not at the end. You are at the threshold of forever purpose. The crown you wear is not made of gold, but of grace, and it fits you perfectly. Beloved chosen one, you've walked with heaven through every word, every silence, every revelation. You have faced fear and chosen faith. You have seen pain turn into wisdom, waiting turn into worship, and trials transform into testimony. Now you stand crowned not with pride, but with peace. This is your moment to breathe, to honor how far you've come, and to recognize that you are living proof of God's unfailing faithfulness. The journey doesn't end here, it expands. What you've received in these words is not just comfort, it's calling. There are hearts out there still wandering in shadows, waiting for a glimpse of the same light that found you. And that light shines through you now. When you like this message, you're not just agreeing with it, you're saying to heaven, I receive this truth. When you share it, you're extending that light into someone else's midnight. Leave your reflection below in the comments, not just words, but your living testimony. Someone may need to read what faith looks like in real time. Speak from the heart, because your story has power. And if this space has reminded you who you are, subscribe to stay connected to the flow of divine encouragement. Every interaction, every word you release keeps the flame alive. You are part of something sacred, an echo of hope spreading across countless hearts. The same grace that reached you through these messages is meant to flow through you now. So carry the light forward. Keep walking in faith, keep sharing truth, and keep letting heaven speak through your life. Because your story isn't finished, it's only beginning. And the world needs to hear it.